how would you rank your Spider-Man?
I personally think every single narrative thing produced is an accomplishment.
I saw that Chris Pratt actually reposted your video.
How do you take the idea of someone dressing up as a bat and running around at night and treat that as seriously as possible? I interviewed the two writers on No Way Home.
What are your thoughts on the MCU after, I guess, Thanos?
I feel like if you called Shah Rukh Khan and said, hey, do you want to be the next Marvel villain? Why would he say no? You know?
Baston's hair. Do you think Tony Stark will ever be recasted? Do you think Disney will kick Jonathan Majors out of Marvel? Do you ever do these analyses for Bollywood movies or anything?
The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a universe, right? Just make one fully in Hindi. Take skills I learned from ancient religious text analysis and put them on Marvel movies. It works. It's fun.
Yeah.
You know?
All right, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Keep Shining podcast. It's been a while since we've recorded an episode, but this one's very special because we have a guest that I've wanted on for so long. Ladies and gentlemen, Anhar Kareem.
It's good to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
How you doing, bro? Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm really excited. I been watching for a bit. A lot of creators that I admire have been on, so yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
No, of course. This has been a long time coming, but for those that don't know, I guess, do you have like a description of yourself, of how you could describe yourself to people?
Like as a creator?
Yeah, as a creator.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I do I look at you?
Whatever's comfortable with you. This is how you know he's a creator, because he's like, yo, should I look at the camera? Like, yeah.
Yeah, so what I like doing is, basically film analysis. So I, dig into popular stories, popular movies, TV shows, and that sort of thing. And I like picking them apart and sort of trying to figure out, what is it trying to tell us? What is the moral behind it? What is the lesson, right? And primarily what I've been doing is posting TikToks that really go into that level of depth and explain it in under a minute and that sort of thing. So primarily on TikTok over the last 3-ish years, I think, I've been, studying pop culture in that way, talking about it, and building a sizable following off of it. And I have a bit of presence on YouTube, and, increasing on Reels as well. But yeah, mostly been on TikTok and doing that sort of thing.
I think my first introduction was actually very interesting, because I remember 2 years ago, maybe this was like 2020, everyone's scrolling through TikTok, and Spider-Man is one of my favorite characters, like, ever, right? And I saw this TikTok, and it was understanding Peter Parker in Spider-Man 2, which is one of my favorite movies. And so the analysis was beautifully done. It was amazing. And then fast forward, I think it's a year later, 2 years later, I have a friend named Shazeb and Hatham, and he's like, hey, like, I'm going to make this text group where there's people like TikTokers around the area, and I'm going to get this group together. And so then I saw this other number, and this guy was like, hey, it's Anhar. Yeah. And I was like, okay, cool. And I think you put in your TikTok handle. And then I was like, wait, that TikTok handle looks familiar. And so I click on it, and I see that analysis that I remembered that I really loved. Yeah. And I was like, oh, snap, this is the guy. And I was like, wait, you're from the area? Yeah. And I was like, Kid Shazzy, what the heck? Yeah. So I was like, yo, small world. Yeah. But yeah, that was like one of my favorite like analysis ever.
And it's so cool because, like, you put stuff out there and you put effort into it, but like sometimes you forget that there's actually people watching it and that it, actually has an impact and that sort of thing. So I always love hearing that it does like resonate with people when it is their favorite character and that sort of thing. But also I was like trying to find other creators that I could connect with. So I was really happy for Shazam to put us all together. Yeah.
No, that was really cool. And I like I said, I was really happy because, I have a few different types of friends, but like, nobody that's like a creator about like nerdy stuff, and like going in-depth analysis even into it too, and seeing the beauty and art of like these movies that most people probably wouldn't see, right? Because like, I don't know what you think, but I wanted to know how would you rank your Spider-Man?
So the movies are just the incarnations of each character?
The live action.
So you do like, you want to rank like, 2, then Homecoming, or like
the actors.
The actor. Okay.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think my opinion's probably not too controversial. It's probably very close to what most people would say, but like a lot of us grew up with, Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man. I think a lot about just his sincerity, his just pure dorkiness about it was just very, endearing, right? And it really helped me connect with him as a character, but really the superhero genre as a whole, right? That's what got me into it. So I just have a personal emotional connection with it, but it was just, I think, very well done.
Yeah.
I probably would put Tom Holland's next. I know a lot of the fan base sort of, you know, he's controversial at times. Some people say he's the worst Spider-Man, that sort of thing.
He's like Tony's, like, you know.
He's definitely, you know, Iron Man Jr.
Iron Man Jr.
But I've really appreciated how emotionally powerful his 3 movies have been. And his entire arc, you know, from beginning to end, just shows how much he's grown as a character from being, you know, authentically a high school kid to the sort of young man that he is now and that sort of thing. I think Tom Holland's done a fantastic job. I think the writers have done a fantastic job. John Watts as well. I think it was really well done, so I put that second. And I feel like it's kind of unfair to put Andrew Garfield's in third, but like I would put it there, not because I think his playing of Spider-Man, right, and how he embodied it and his, you know, how he interacted with villains and all of that was fantastic. I just think Tobey Maguire's is just on another level. And I think Tom Holland's like in a similar, but maybe a bit higher level, right? I think Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was mostly hurt by some poor plotting, right?
Yeah,
I think if he had better scripts, like it would have been a lot better. Not to, you know, I've talked to, I've like dug into a bit of like the writers of Spider-Man's, right? A bit, right? I didn't talk to those writers, but you know, there's some good things happening in those scripts as well. But I think he could have been served better with a better story.
No, I agree, because I think Andrew played Spider-Man the best, right? In my opinion, even though I'm a huge Tobey fan. Like, I just think Tobey's movies were so well done, and I like the human aspect, right? Like, for me, Spider-Man, the dopest thing about him is his actual problems are not even, you know, the villains themselves, but his real life. You know, it's like balancing that. And I think Tobey's, especially Spider-Man 2, really dealt with that.
And when they're done well, the villains that he's fighting, whatever battle he's doing, it is reflecting his own personal problems in life, right? It's just meant to bring out the actual emotional human element of it, right? Which is part of why Spider-Man 2 was so good, because, I mean, to an extent, there's the stereotype that Spider-Man always has a personal connection with his villains, right? And it's kind of, you know, maybe it's a bit overdone, but it works well, right? And he knew Doc Ock beforehand, and Doc Ock believed in him, right? And the fight between them was physical, but it was also about, you know, the ideals that they both aspired to, about helping the world, about being better than ourselves, than what people expect of us. And I think it played out really well.
I don't want, guys, everybody, I don't want this to be like a Spider-Man podcast. I'm just, you know, that's the video that, you know, I first saw of Anhar's. So I was like, all right, I want to know what his thoughts are on Spider-Man. But how did you get into, I guess, reviewing movies and reviewing characters, and why did you decide to like upload them online? Yeah.
I mean, so it's interesting because like I was fascinated by like the content creation thing for a while, right? Even going back, like I in college, I made this chronological watch order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Up until that point, I think it was up until the first Black Panther, so it's like much smaller than it is now.
Basically, it was just like a recap, right? Like quick recap.
Yeah, basically a recap, and I would do it on like I'd draw things on a whiteboard and like talk about it really fast, and so I put that on YouTube.
I actually watched that like recently because I was like, you know, doing a little research or whatever, and then your voice is the same tonation, but it was like higher.
I think I was sped up.
Oh, it's sped up. Okay. I was like, dude.
Because I had to get it all in the thing. But you know, I just spent so much effort like making that and not writing my thesis. But it was so much fun, right? And I not realized, but like I just knew I liked dealing with plots and just sort of like wrangling them and seeing what new things I could make from them, right? So I kind of had like that bug in me where I wanted to make things. And I think the other thing is, if you talk to, you know, Shaz Abedal, Kid Shazy, he will tell you how annoyed he gets because I talk about movies and Marvel movies specifically so much and just like annoy him with analysis and plot theory and everything. And Shazab is like, I don't care, man. Like, I'm sure someone out there does, but this is not.
I'm that someone, by the way, because last time we hung out, we were talking for 3 hours, 3 hours on a dinner table, like just about every like.
And everyone abandoned us around us.
But anyways, continue.
Yeah. So, you know, I kind of was forcing it on Shazab, right? And then some other friends. But I was kind of just like, you know, I clearly have these ideas, right? I want to see if I can like condense them and make something with them, right? Because I wanted to be a creator. And so I kind of like turned those thoughts that I already had that way and tried to make content out of it and that sort of thing. But also like I think, you know, for almost a decade now, like I really admired what YouTube video essayists did and like picked apart movies and that sort of thing. And I thought I could do something similar, right?
Yeah.
So I wanted to try it out.
No,
So
I definitely. I mean, who are some creators that you were like looking at that got you like interested in content creation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would start with YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And so I think at the beginning I really liked like Nerd Writer, right?
Okay.
I think his analyses were fantastic. I really love Cinema Wins, right? Which was like it was derivative of Cinema Sins, but I love how he has deep analysis, but I also love how he tries so hard to find the good in every single story. Because I personally think every single narrative thing produced is an accomplishment, even with its faults. I think it's an accomplishment. So I loved how he approached certain things. And there's a lot. Lessons from the screenplay. He didn't post that frequently, but I think it was just always very well done.
Did you ever watch like movie reviewers?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was mostly like in this video essay world.
Okay.
There were some reviewers
So
here
not
and
like
there.
Jeremy Johns.
So I have seen some of his.
Yeah.
And then there are probably a couple others I've seen here and there. But I think like
You like the analyses part, like
and
when they dig deeper.
and this makes sense. Like that relates to the kind of stuff that I do,
Yeah.
right? And I saw TikTok as a rising platform, and I was like, can I bring that thing here, right? Yeah, I want to try
And that's awesome. So like, were you always writing? Like, how'd you? Because your writing's really good, I think. And I think you do it professionally too, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also a journalist, and so I interview directors, writers, actors, that sort of thing, and write articles about the movies and all that. But yeah, no, I've always been writing. In fact, like if you go way back, elementary school, even like I would think about these little movie, novel, whatever plots, and just begin writing them on my whatever old computer, and I would just design little fake posters with crayon. And the one of the first stories I ever wrote was this superhero story called Metal Man, right? And I made him a whole backstory and villain, and there was a metal boy, there was a metal dog. And I maybe fifth grade, I wrote like a 100-page novel. Like,
oh wow!
It's terrible. I don't know where it is now, but like I had that, that drive to do that in me, right? So I've been writing forever, right? And when I went to college, I started like writing some short stories and that sort of thing. So yeah,
that's awesome.
A lot of fun.
I actually had something similar. Like when I was in sixth grade, I think first grade. I was 6 years old. Our teacher was like, "Hey, everyone's gonna be writing a book." So my book was like about superheroes, and it was called like the 5 Magic Powers. But it actually had like Deadpool in it, and Mr. Fantastic, like just mixing like different characters.
I don't know about the IP, man. You're gonna get a cease and desist.
Like Fox is gonna be like, "Yo," I mean,
Or
they're all under
you.
one. They're all acquire me. But yeah. So I was always like interested in like superheroes and stuff like that. But were you? Like why is your analyses, I guess it's not always superheroes, but like mostly I feel like it is superheroes. Why?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like I watch a good chunk of things, right? And I try to diversify the content, but clearly I like doing the superhero stuff, and also it performs. But I do think something of that genre does draw me in. I think it probably mostly began like, even though I watched Spider-Man and X-Men growing up and that sort of thing, I think my understanding of the true like capacity of it or the potential behind it probably began with me like really watching the Dark Knight for the first time, whenever that came out from our ages. But I think Batman's my favorite superhero character of all time, and I just love how Nolan's version of Batman just took it so seriously, right? Like they sat there and asked, I think, a ridiculous question. How do you take the idea of someone dressing up as a bat and running around at night and treat that as seriously as possible, right? Which is not novel. Comics have done that, but like I appreciated how they sat there and made a logical psychological progression to get him there, right? And maybe it started there, but I just appreciated how, with these dramatic, powerful stories, we were able to access all these different moral lessons and ideas and that sort of thing. And also there's something inherently really inspiring about, one person or a couple trying to do whatever they can to uphold their understanding of morality, right? It always drew me in.
Is Dark Knight your favorite movie? Or
Favorite movie of all time is very hard. It does constantly flip. Lately I have been saying the Social Network.
That's a great
I think it's very well done. I've watched it so many times. I would put Dark Knight like similarly up there, right? Dark Knight, Social Network, and then I do really, this is controversial ish, but like I do really love Zack Snyder's Watchmen. Like I thought it was very well done.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about this like off camera,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it as a kid. I hated it because there was not
Yeah.
enough action. It was like so brutal. Like the action was
violent.
good, but like it was super violent.
Yeah.
And there was just too much talking in the middle, you know?
Yeah.
But then when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, this is serious.
Yeah. I wrote an essay on it back in college.
Yeah.
So I usually land on those three, but favorite superhero movie is probably Dark Knight. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So no MCU up there.
You know, I made a TikTok once where it was like no nuance November or something, and I said The Dark Knight is just the best superhero movie. It's better than everything in the MCU. And I think I lost some followers. I think
Really?
people got mad at me. And I was like, look, I love the MCU. Clearly, I do. There's so many great entries.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight's just a different category.
Yeah.
It's just so beyond anything.
I feel like if you took the Batman out of it, it'd still be like a great movie. Like,
Yeah, no, it's just fantastically structured. His arc itself is beautiful. Even if you got rid of the Batman, like if you just had someone that's very driven, you know, to try his best to do good, right,
Yeah.
against a certain evil, the story tracks,
Yeah.
right? I think it's so well done, which I think is, you know, the best versions of these stories do not rely on their IP. Their IP is there,
Yeah.
right? But there's a powerful story underneath it.
that's important. That's important. I also think the villain is amazing. Like I saw an analysis where it was like the Joker's actually the hero of the story. And why he says that is because he took down all the mob. He took all their money, burned it. He took control of all of them. Batman couldn't even do that.
Yeah.
Harvey Dent was actually like almost doing it.
Yeah.
But, you know, then Joker just flipped him and
And he wins. He wins in the end.
He
You know?
wins, yeah.
I saw a similar analysis on, and I think this is true. Like even the writers have agreed that, but Thanos is the hero of Infinity War, right? Because it begins with him, it ends with him. He wins. It's like he's the character that had motivations established, had steps to fulfill, did it despite all the obstacles, won at the end. And I think it totally tracks. He's the hero of Infinity War.
Interesting.
But yeah, similar with Joker.
Yeah. I think Joker is like awesome. I wanted to ask, like, what are your thoughts on the MCU after, I guess, Thanos? And like,
After that,
because a lot of people are saying, yo, Marvel's like fallen off.
Yeah.
Like, and I kind of agree a little bit.
Well, see, the thing is, like, even before, like, you know, the Phase 4 stuff where people are saying there's like lower quality things, right? People would come up to me and say, like, oh, you know, why do you like the MCU so much? It's like all, you know, it's either kids' films or they're surface level, they're not that deep, that sort of thing. And my challenge to that is like, hey, you're talking about a collection of then like 20 movies, right? There's a wide variety within those 20 movies, right? There are some that I personally didn't really like, right? Again, I think every movie's an accomplishment, but like I personally didn't really like that much. I think that could have been better. There are some that I think are incredible, right? So when you're saying the MCU, you need to understand there's like such a diversity of quality within that. So I think it's very hard to say the MCU is good or bad. I think it's an accomplishment. But I think there's a variety in there. So I sort of approach it similar like to that, to, you know, what is happening right now or what would happen in Phase 4. For instance, like I'm not sure if WandaVision is Phase 4, but I loved WandaVision, right? I thought it was very well done. I think the ending could have been better, but like I thought it was very emotional. You know, I definitely cried watching it. I thought it was beautiful. I did not like Quantumania, right? I watched it. I appreciate some of the things it's done. I love Scott Lang.
We saw it together.
Yeah. But I hoped more from it,
Yeah.
right? And so I think when Marvel Studios, fine, it's a franchise, right? But I think if you approach it as a studio that makes just all these projects, you're going to have to understand that there's going to be like some things that are incredible, some things that are passable, and some things that maybe could have been better, right?
Yeah.
I think, you know, that balance is expected and fair.
Yeah.
I do think there's probably some validity to the idea that the MCU is just churning out a lot of content right now, and for that reason, maybe things might feel a bit rushed. And that's why I am reassured by, you know, what I'm reading, where they seem to be slowing down a bit, right, and focusing a bit more on the writing. Because some of the shows, and I think especially the shows, like I see so many good ideas, but I just feel like if it just had like 4 more months, they could have cracked it.
Yeah.
You know.
Because I think, like, especially in this phase, I was really excited because they're exploring very like interesting topics when it comes to like universal like travel and, you know, time and all that stuff, but it's so very surface level, and it's just, you know, cookie cutter, you know, storylines where I'm like, dude, if they just, you know, focused on those aspects, it could have been, you know, very unique.
I think they could double down more. I I don't think they're entirely formulaic. Like to me, it's like a structure thing. Like like a Ms. Marvel, right? Like I think there's so many fantastic individual beats, right? But if you watch the entire thing, even back to back, the pacing feels very sudden at times, right? Sometimes it starts as a very like sober teen drama, right? And it does that very well. And then we shift to this whole beat in Pakistan where it becomes like a sort of like a high stakes action romp sort of thing. And then it sort of ends with, I guess, more traditional Marvel ending, that sort of thing. But like, it just felt like it was trying to be three different shows that were independently, I think, quite good, but they could have spent more time threading them together.
Yeah.
It feels like. And I have similar thoughts on like Winter Soldier.
Okay. So overall, you didn't like Miss Marvel? Or you
No, I liked it. It. I just think like structurally, it was just the pacing fell off, like it just felt like I was watching a really good show and I was like, oh, okay, we're here now. Okay, sure. And then I was like, oh, okay, we're here now. Like I liked each part of it. It's just the way they
mixing it together.
Yeah. It just felt, yeah. Again, if they had 6 more months, I think they could have cracked it.
Interesting. I think like also the only reason when people say like, Marvel's just, they have, a lot of content and some will be good, some will be great. I just remember, I mean, obviously it wasn't as much content, but I think there was like a reign where they had for like, I think it was like 2015 to end of, like Infinity War and stuff like that. They had like Civil War. They had like all these Guardians of the Galaxy, like just bangers after bangers after bangers. And I feel like we've been seeing like duds after duds after duds,
Yeah, I mean, I think they probably had like a really good stretch there. I think they had a lot of really good creators, and writers and directors and all of that. And I do think we're not like at that level right now. But like I see a lot of promise, and I see good entries.
Yeah.
I know the fan base like really said a lot of criticism of like She-Hulk, for instance. But am I going to put She-Hulk at the top of my ranking? No, but like it also, I don't think it was trying to be that. It was trying to be just like a very simple, lighthearted comedy, right? And I was like, yeah, sure, this does that pretty well.
Yeah. By the way, plug guys, in the Patreon bonus episode, we're going to be ranking all the MCU content. And so we're going to have Anhar put his rankings. Hopefully we'll do that. So check out the Patreon, patreon.com/ShimmerWally. But yeah, do you think Tony Stark will ever be recasted?
So, I mean, I do think it's probably inevitable that the MCU is gonna want to do like a hard reboot at some point, right? Like, well, I don't know if it's inevitable, but like I would understand the business decision if they like did this for another 20 years and then decided like, all right, we want to do it again. So if they do that, then yeah, it'd probably recast. Recasting in the same continuity, I think it's totally. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think it'd be a valid choice to go say, I'm going to pull this from another universe, right? And he suddenly played by Tom Cruise. I don't know. I think that makes sense. It makes sense within the rules they've established, and I don't see why not.
Yeah.
But I don't think they can. I don't think they should, nor do I think they will, revive the Tony Stark that we saw die as a different face. That would be weird.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think what they would do is something similar to what X-Men tried to do, or they did do, is what they have one main character that's from the older generation, goes back in time, does something, changes everything else, but they still have that, the younger generation have their storyline while, the older generation kind of like picks in here and there.
Yeah. And
I think they had a lot of potential with it. I mean, I don't know what you thought of X-Men and the newer rehash, but I thought, the first two at least, or first 2 or 3 of the newer X-Men movies were like phenomenal. Yeah. And I love the first 2 of the originals too. Yeah. And like a few of the Wolverines. So yeah,
X-Men is a fascinating like franchise within this whole superhero genre. Actually, I got to make more TikToks on the X-Men things. I think I made a couple, but I haven't made many. I really did like X-Men 1 and 2. I didn't hate X-Men 3 as much as people tend to hate it.
Yeah,
I think it was.
I mean, I was a kid, so I enjoyed it. Right. I was like, yeah, Wolverine, like.
But Logan, for instance, I think was incredible.
Oh yeah.
Right. First Class, I think, was really good.
Oh, First Class was amazing. Yeah. Days of Future Past, I loved too.
I liked it. I think First Class was like probably better, but like Days of Future was good. I was very disappointed by Apocalypse,
X-Men,
right?
Apocalypse, yeah.
And then Dark Phoenix I was also very disappointed by. So it's very interesting how they often have like the same talent on these movies, but that franchise is like very hit or miss.
Yeah.
But I largely overall enjoyed it. Like I thought it was really good.
I think the issues with these comic book movies is that with comics, you can have these characters live for 100 years, right? Yeah. But with movies, these actors get old, and sometimes they get tired of playing the same character, so then they kind of have to like leave it and kind of have it for somebody else. And I think when these characters do such a good job, like especially, you know, Robert Downey Jr. with Tony Stark, it's like people will get mad even if they have the greatest actor in the world play, you know, Tony Stark, they would still get angry. And I think that's what you know, the MCU is kind of, I you know, I feel like there would do some sort of like, oh, reset, or, you know, and they do that in the comics too. So
yeah. And I mean, like, I think the constraint that the cinematic universe has, I think, is very, I don't know, sometimes like these weird constraints that you can't control do lead to better storytelling, right? So the fact that we do have this constraint of like physical actors and aging and all of that, I think it is pushing the Marvel Cinematic Universe to tell a more straightforward linear story that allows people to have exits and die and grow out of something that maybe the comics wouldn't always allow, right? I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Interesting. With the movie analyses that you do you feel like sometimes you find beauty in films that like aren't even that great, or like you over like, you know, try to like it?
I don't. So like this is where I go back to why I really admire Cinema Wins, right? Because Cinema Wins will like, he'll even admit this is not that great of a movie, but he will find the best parts of it. He will find what is redeemable about it, right? And you know, like clearly someone spent a good chunk of their life making this thing, writing this thing, producing this thing, editing this thing. I doubt everyone was actively trying to make a bad movie. These people were probably, you know, someone somewhere thought this was good, right? And so for that reason, I think almost everything genuinely has something good about it. Even movies that I really didn't like, I will find there are good things about it, right? And I'll say, you know, like I mentioned now, like I'll say which projects I didn't enjoy as much. I'll say which projects I loved, right? But even if you give me a movie I really did not like, if you were to show me Quantumania again, I will sit there and I'll find what parts of it I did like, because I think there's always going to be this positive mindset. I think is very like a good way to watch media.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's a bit of like what I try to like present in my content as well, because even in the comments, like I make a whole thing about, I don't know, Marvel, and they're like, yeah, Marvel's great, DC sucks. I'm like, no, DC has fantastic films, right? And I'm not like, I don't think we should, it's not necessarily the case that we should bash something by praising something else. Like everything can be good in ways.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on James Gunn's DC universe?
I'm really excited. I really admire his work, right? I did some Guardians of the Galaxy. I did a Rocket video recently, so I went back and watched, like, sort of analyzing Guardians of the Galaxy. I think he does such a fantastic job of, you know, making it a thrill ride, making it fun and funny and all of that. But all of his character work is so emotionally powerful, right? There's just so much going on. And all of them have like satisfying full arcs, and they're human. They're so human, right? So they had that in Guardians of the Galaxy. It's amazing how they like just extended their arcs in Volume 2, and I just watched 3. And you know, that's Guardians of the Galaxy. But then I watched the Peacemaker TV show, which I you know, it definitely should get more love. I don't know if more, you know, people have seen it, but Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, I did not care for at all, right? Like
I thought he was hilarious, but
I mean, he was funny,
yeah,
but like
funny.
I did not.
Yeah, he didn't have like
with him.
super depth.
Yeah, in the show, he is such a rich and nuanced character, and I was like, how it is amazing. And John Cena can act, man. You know,
really?
It was really good. So I fully trust him. Like I think he's gonna be amazing at it. I think he's a fantastic storyteller. I think it is such a huge loss for Marvel to lose him. But I trust it. Like I'm really excited.
Like, speaking of that, what were your thoughts when, you know, they let James Gunn go, and like, you know, Disney kind of, they want to keep their brand like safe. What are your thoughts on like all that when they see an actor, and you know, there's another actor going on, I forgot his name.
It's
Jonathan Majors, and him playing like a huge villain for the next phase. Like, what are your thoughts on like all that?
Yeah, I mean, so I wrote an article on James Gunn back when that happened. And you know, articles are, you know, I'm not really giving an opinion. But I was sort of saying, like, I was making the point about how as companies become, you know, more socially conscious and that sort of thing, sometimes they overcorrect, right? And they do a certain thing that, you know, they, you know, might feel is correct at the time, right? But maybe wasn't actually stepping into the nuance of the situation and like what was actually going on. And the fact is, his comments, James Gunn's comments, were years ago. He had already apologized like repeatedly over them. And I think for the most part, like a lot of people did not hold that against him, but there was sort of like a media campaign against him in the moment that was easy to fall into, right? So even when it was announced, like I didn't think it was a wise choice. I wrote an article sort of summarizing those thoughts. It got picked up and like pushed in some places to like support James Gunn, which was not like the article wasn't me writing in favor of James Gunn. It was like examining the phenomenon.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the Disney executives eventually came out to the same decision. They're saying like, oh, this was maybe a rash decision. Maybe it wasn't the right one. James like seems like he did, apologize and all of that.
And I think also the Guardians of the Galaxy's actors, I don't know if they were protesting, but they were kind of like, hey, we stand with him. Like, dude, he's amazing. Like, he's nice. Like, I don't know if, were they like protest?
They wrote a letter. They co-signed a letter. They sent it to Marvel. They actively like met with the executives. I think they called, like Chris Pratt, had some star power at that point. He called people. They really pushed for him, right? I think there was a recent I think Hollywood Reporter piece tied to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 where they went into that saga, and they really just go into like how they, really came out for him. And they were saying like he's such a amazing director to work with. He's given us so much. We're going to step in for him and try to help him out. So yeah, I think it was an unfortunate episode. I'm glad he came back. I think it's definitely Marvel's loss because like in that period, that's when he like started going over to DC.
Yeah.
Definitely DC's win. Now, the situation with Jonathan Majors, I think is like very, very different, right? Like
do you think Disney will kick Jonathan Majors out of Marvel?
Like all I know from right now is like the rumors that exist, and I don't really want to comment on like rumors, right? But like, if there is a situation where someone, is actively harming someone or did something illegal and that sort of thing, I think that's a different category than someone making some mean tweets, right?
Yeah.
And, I'm not involved in these investigations and all of that, but like, if it seems to be true, I think it makes sense to, see what can be done after that.
So do you think it'd be easy to replace Kang then? So
this goes back to, I think some of the constraints that come with storytelling that can sometimes lead into strong stories. I pretty firmly believe that most any story pivot can work if done well. The if done well part is the hard part, obviously. I don't think any one choice is like, hey, this will never work. No, I think a good writer can make pretty much anything work. So yeah, sure. Like I'm sure. I mean, I think it's one of the easier things in this one though, because like you just say like, we saw 1,000 kings that look like him, but here's another 1,000 that don't look like him, right? It's a multiverse story.
So would you recast as Kang?
Oh, I have no idea. Some people were saying, I don't know his name, but Finn from Star Wars.
Dude, why? I forgot his name. But yeah.
But John Boyega?
John Boyega.
Yeah, I think he but I don't know. Like I wouldn't have like a preset like I want this person, but there's plenty of fantastic actors that I'm sure would want it.
Yeah. You said Batman was your favorite character. What did you think of the new Batman?
Oh, I loved it. Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah, man. I love. Like I think a lot of people, look at superhero movies and they're like, oh, this is kid stuff. This is whatever. And it can be kid stuff, right? There are comics that are aimed at kids. There's like, my nephew has some like baby Avengers books. Sure. But I love the interpretations that just try to take it as seriously as possible, right? Because I know it's inherently ridiculous for someone dressed up like a bat. Like it is ridiculous. I don't need to be reminded that,
But they also address that in the movie.
Right. No, kind of cool. They let it be, narratively driven, right? And I think it's fantastic to use those constraints and let that motivate your story. But I love how serious it was. I've loved so many of the Bruce Waynes, but I love this incarnation of Bruce Wayne because he just is so profoundly broken, right? And even like as Bruce Wayne, as like the guy not in the costume, he is not put together at all. Like he is seriously struggling. Yeah,
he's failing left and right. Even as a smart detective, he's missing some of that.
Yeah, and I think like that is a very honest way to portray him, because something's gonna have to be really, really, hard in your life if you're gonna resort to this sort of lifestyle, right? And I think, I don't know, I just love the honesty or the power that came from presenting like that.
I also loved the passion they put behind the film. Like you could tell, like the cinematography, they really made it look dirty. Just the whole city, like you felt the city. I didn't really feel that in the different Batman films. Like you kind of feel the universe that they're kind of building, and it's natural. And all these lively characters that are in this city and breathing, and they're making spin-offs off of it because, the way Matt Reeves made the city is just really well done.
Yeah. And this is probably like, I think one of the dings on Nolan's Batman is that his Gotham was not that distinct, right? And Batman Begins, it had a bit of personality, but in The Dark Knight and then in Rises, it kind of just becomes a city, which works for the story. But like, yeah, in the Batman, like Gotham really stands out. But it's also not like in the animated series, for instance, Gotham really stands out. And then also in the some of the Keaton Batmans, Gotham really stands out. So
yeah, I mean, in the Keaton Batmans, you had who's the director again?
I should know this. I mean,
Tim Burton.
Yeah,
Tim Burton. Tim Burton. I mean, every universe he builds is like Tim Burton's universe, Yeah. But yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. But I think I'm excited to see where it goes, because I just love when people put like a lot of passion into something. And really like make it artistic.
Yeah.
When it comes to the acting, the music, the cinematography, the shots, and all that stuff. I think.
I just want to keep seeing him suffer, man. Like it is so beautiful. His suffering is just so well done.
Yeah. And you think he's like on top of it, and then he just messes up right there.
Yeah.
And then, what'd you think of Catwoman?
I think she's great. Yeah, like I think she functions very well as like a, I guess not a foil, but like a complement, complementary to him.
Some people say she was not like as smart or like, as Catwoman like as other.
I mean, I think they're both meant to be young. They're both meant to be like earlier in their careers. But I don't know. She didn't do anything stupid, right? Like I think she played the game pretty well. She like even played Batman in certain parts of it. Yeah, I mean, I think it works. I think it works really well for that universe.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed their dynamic because, like, Batman is like, I don't know, he's just so serious to the point where he seems to not understand comedy, seems to not understand like levity. So like, I don't know, he was over at her apartment and all the cats were around him, and then he was like, "You like cats?" And I don't think he meant it as a joke, but it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he understands intonation like that.
Yeah,
I think it works.
That's funny. Do you ever do these analyses for like Bollywood movies or anything?
Yeah, I mean, so I need to watch like more Bollywood movies, right? But like from what I watched, I haven't made TikToks on them, but like I loved Om Shanti Om, right? I think there's a lot of like very nuanced, powerful storytelling happening there. I love Three Idiots, right? I thought it was really well done.
That was great.
There was a period where maybe watching it back now I won't like it as much, but like I really liked the Shah Rukh Khan Dawn, right? And I would also do similar analyses and that sort of thing. But again, this was like, I haven't watched many Bollywood films like recently, and so this was the period again where like I would watch these movies and just annoy anyone within distance, where I could like tell them about movie analysis. I did recently watch Pathan, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it. I think it was a serviceable action movie.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was like, here's our Fast and the Furious version. Like, watch it. Like, it's dumb. We know it's dumb. Just we have these big actors.
Hey, man, you've seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they had Tiger come in. I haven't even watched that movie, but I was like, hey, this is a cameo. This
Cinematic
cool.
universe.
Yeah, this is cool.
The ICU.
And I think they're gonna throw in Hrithik Roshan's like spy thing into that universe too.
Oh wow.
So I don't know. It was fun.
Yeah. I thought the action was done really well. Like in the train scene especially.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah. So I haven't looked into the production behind it, but like it to me felt like a movie where they hired like action people. I not first, but like they really focused on that part of it,
Yeah,
right? Because I noticed that parts like maybe the CGI looked a bit rough compared to American movies, but the action looked on par in some places to American movies. So
yeah, yeah. So I mean I think like Bollywood movies they're just producing so much. They actually produce more than Hollywood.
Yeah,
Like way more than Hollywood. And it's like, yo, we don't even hear about like most of the Bollywood movies. It's just we only hear kind of like the most popular ones, at least us in America.
You know what I want? The Marvel Cinematic Universe is a universe, right? Just make one fully in Hindi. Just make one. Why not? Share it in the same canon.
Like their own characters.
I don't like. Is there an Indian Marvel here? Probably is one, right? Or make an original
there's
one.
Krish. There are a few.
No, but Krish, is there like a Marvel Indian superhero? Like in
the
canon?
Okay. You're saying like Marvel has their own Indian superheroes.
Yeah, in the comics. I don't know if there probably is one.
I feel like there are a few.
But
okay.
even if there's not, just make one, right?
Yeah.
But like, if it's a universe, why not?
Yeah, and just have Disney India produce it.
Sure, right? Yeah. And then just have like Jimmy Woo show up and credit.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
No, that's actually a big brain idea. And then if you have like different areas of the world, like they just have their own characters and they thrive. And then
that, or I think seriously, like call up some of the Bollywood actors. Like I'm not sure, but like I feel like if you called Shah Rukh Khan and said, "Hey, do you want to be the next Marvel villain?" Why would he say no? You know, I feel like he'd love it.
मेरे पास stones हैं मैं snap करूँगा.
That could be amazing.
That would be so funny. I feel like I wouldn't take it seriously, but I would love to see it.
Yeah,
I would love to see it. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of potential, but I think also there was a lot of slack for the overdoing of CGI for Bollywood films. Right. And there have been a few films, I forgot what it's called, like Brahmastra or something like that, where the CGI is like insanely good. And I think they're stepping up their CGI game. But what I've noticed in a lot of Bollywood films is that they do the insane CGI. Like they have the Indian Terminator, and I think the movie's called Robot. But this guy, he's a robot and he can like multiply himself. And so he multiplies himself and creates like a giant snake.
I've seen this.
Yeah, giant snake and all that stuff. And I feel like they do these clips so that they can like go viral and kind of, people watch these movies because of how ridiculous the action is.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like even like some of Marvel's like cameo fests and like end credit scenes, I think they're sometimes designed to go viral, right? So it's not like it's not like American movies are above that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the CGI is definitely getting better. And I don't want to say Brahmastra, that was a Disney movie. Like Disney, I think co-produced it, and that's why they had more budget with it.
Wow, no way.
Yeah, that's the one where I didn't watch it, but like they went to like some Hindu religion ideas as well. Yeah,
it was kind of like the trailer kind of looked like Avatar. It was like he was mastering all four elements or something. So I was like, oh, interesting. But the CGI looked insane. What's one of the biggest letdowns for you in terms of movies like in the MCU?
Biggest letdowns.
Like you were super excited for it, and then
it's hard. I mean,
just like
most recently, like I think I was let down by Quantumania. But if I try to dig deeper, let down.
Or you can take some time to think about it if you don't have one.
No, I don't have it on top of my head.
Okay.
But like I feel like I should be able to like talk about what I was really hyped about. I don't know. Like I try to go back and access like what I thought about when I watched Iron Man 2. It was a long time ago, but like I remember not feeling as like I wasn't as impressed, right?
Yeah.
I obviously kept watching, right? I still like the character. But I think Iron Man 1 was just so good.
Yeah,
right.
It really was.
Which is crazy. It was like you look about the production story, like it was a complete mess behind the scenes, right? But they were able to make such a well-structured plot. Iron Man 2 did feel like they were just trying to rush to a sequel, right? I think there's some redeemable qualities, as with anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
I think the coolest part, although like I love the Iron Man character, I think the coolest part of his movies, like solo movies, the second and third, were just like the Iron Man suit ups. Like to me, I loved those. Like anytime it was more creative, and then it started getting boring after he started doing the nano suits.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on.
I think his practical suits and how he like upgraded them and like made them more accessible, like.
The suitcase,
yeah,
that was
suitcase
so
was awesome.
sick.
And then when he started like letting the individual ones like attach to him and use it, I think that was cool. I get why the progression of his technology landed on nanotech. Like it makes sense. His suits kept getting better and better and better. What do you do after a while? But yeah, you lost a bit of the tactileness. But see, like Iron Man was about to die anyway, so it makes sense to have him have that full arc. But what I hate is that I don't know if hate's the right word. What I don't like is everyone's masks is like nanotech now. Like they all like just melt off and melt on. Like you think about Civil War, right? At the end, where T'Challa like removes his mask to go against Zemo, right? That was just I don't know, something about him removing it to really face him just felt so real and tactile. Even though like I'm sure some of that was covered in CGI, it just felt like I could. It felt more real, right? I felt like I'd be there a bit, and I feel like we are losing that now with the masks.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have any like hot take of a movie that you like but everyone kind of like hates?
I mean, yeah, probably. Everyone hates,
or like everyone kind of like dislikes. Like
this is hard. It's hard to like. I don't have these off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But I liked and everyone dislikes generally. Well, I mean, I think looking back now. I mean, this is not like that. Not that because a lot of people have redeemed it. But like I do think Batman v Superman got more criticism than it deserved. And like even you look back in my online presence, like whenever that came out, I probably said some critiques of it as well. But like in watching it again, I think there was a lot of expectations of it. I think they did not need to do that as it was the second DCEU
Yeah.
movie. Like I think it was way too quick to do
Yeah.
that. But it dealt with some pretty heavy ideas. I think I personally really did like that Batman. He's a very different Batman, but I get it.
Ben Affleck's Batman is insane.
Yeah, no,
I feel like with like more stories and stuff like that, he'd do great. But
and I like in that movie specifically, like he was just not in a good place psychologically, right?
Yeah.
Not the actor, the character. And for that reason, like I liked exploring that. And people say that, oh, this is the gloomy Superman, that sort of thing. But like I liked the weight that you could see on the Superman of like the responsibility on him and all of that. So I think there's a lot of good ideas there. I think there's some things that didn't really add up, but like I think it is like I would say it's a good movie, right?
Yeah.
And not like one of the better of the bad ones. I think it's like maybe good, but not the most amazing, best thing in the world. So I did like it.
Okay, so you did like Batman v Superman. What do you think of the Lex Luthor? Jesse Eisenberg.
No. I think Jesse Eisenberg is fantastic. Obviously, like in the Social Network.
Yeah.
They definitely like I taking risks and making bold choices. I think I'm always going to applaud it, right? Like, and this definitely was a bold choice. It didn't really land for me, right? And that's not because like I don't need Lex Luthor to be exactly comic accurate, right? I don't. Comic accuracy actually is fun when it happens, but like they could have found another way to make him menacing. It just didn't really quite land for me. It's hard for me to describe why, because like they made him like a bit more geeky, but geeky can be a good villain as well. But I don't know. It didn't really land.
Interesting. Where do you see your, I guess, in content creation? Like, where do you see it advancing or going to? Like, are you expanding in any way? Any big moves coming?
I'm trying. So I'm thinking like I want to be more like nimble about where I am. So I want to spend some time in LA, spend some time in New York, be home.
So a digital nomad.
A bit, yeah. And through that, like I want to, hopefully be going to more events, working with more studios. And my hope is that like I'll keep doing these analyses things. And I'll sort of be more platform agnostic and do a bit more long form on YouTube and that sort of thing. But my hope is to sort of like have some sort of regular recurring things where I dive into stories a bit more deeply. And, whether one day I scale that into like having a podcast or an actual show somewhere, I'd love to just dive into movies, maybe have some guests on, and do that sort of thing. And I think like when I look up to, there's a lot of creators I admire, but I don't necessarily want to be like the person that analyzes movies. I think like I like doing that, and I have a lot of fun. But I really look up to like Hank and John Green, for instance, right? Because they have built an entire presence around helping you think deep ideas, right? And they understand the game very well. I sort of want a presence where I use narratives and use blockbusters. I like talking about them, but more be known as like here's a place you go if you want to just like think about things a bit more deeply, right? And I want to build a presence around that. And then I want to write and make some things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I feel like, you're already like on the way to do that. I just think, obviously you're hitting that Marvel cinematic niche, which I think is good. Like, I feel like you use those concepts that you have and use it on a very big like niche. It's a very, anytime I interview people that's wearing like a Marvel costume, I mean, I can instantly guarantee like there'll be some comments and views on it, like on whatever comment I'm trying to make.
I mean, it helps me not bother Shazab with Marvel comments. So he's fair, even though I still bother him.
But so I know you've been invited to a few premieres and few events. What are some events that you've been invited to?
I went to the premiere of Where the Crawdads Sing in New York. I went to the premiere of Lyle Crocodile. I went to some activations for the horror movie Megan, Cocaine Bear recently. I think the most like fun was probably the premiere of the One Piece Red film thing in New York, because there's just like so many fans and food and giveaways. That was cool. But the most memorable and I think my proudest is going to the Ms. Marvel premiere in LA, meeting like a lot of my favorite film creators, on TikTok, and just sort of like seeing a bit of like how it works in Hollywood. Those are some of the collections of things I've done.
And then recently, I think I saw that Chris Pratt actually reposted your video.
Yeah.
How was that?
Oh my God, that was great.
Which video was it?
So I, because Volume 3 is coming out, right? I think I reposted one of my initial Guardians. Which one was it? I think it was the analysis on Star-Lord's
Star-Lord,
arc in
yeah.
the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which I was really proud of that one, where it goes through like, again, because I love the Guardians of the Galaxy, it's so well done. But his story of like, you know, him coming to terms with his mom's death and that sort of thing. It did very well on TikTok back in the day. I reposted it. I put it on Reels, and I tagged him, right, not expecting anything of it. And I just, when I got the notification that he liked it, I was like, I clicked on it. I was like, is this real? Like, what, how, right? And then I don't know, I shared that in my story. I was like, this is amazing. This is crazy. I can't believe he saw it. I said, thank you, Chris Pratt, in my story. And then like an hour later, he shares it. And I was like, what? And then I don't know. I could not contain the excitement.
Yeah, and he doesn't share that many things.
Yeah, no, I've been watching his stories, and like he shows like him on the road and like doing press and all that. But
I mean, like in terms of like reposting, I feel like he doesn't.
I haven't seen much.
Yeah, he doesn't do that.
It was cool.
I can just imagine you like make a Mario like one next.
Yeah, I made a Mario video, but just chase him wherever you go.
Yeah, just chase him like, yo, just some random side character.
You know what's good? Jurassic World.
Jurassic World. Maybe a side character in 40-Year-Old Virgin. Like, here's the character analysis. He just keeps reposting.
But it was so cool. And like, I have had like a few people in the industry, other actors, director writers, like notice things here and there, not a lot. But it's cool, right?
Yeah.
It's cool when they appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, you've interviewed a lot of people, and what are some the most favorite or notable things you've done, like creators you met or like people you've interviewed or talked to?
Yeah. So like as far as interviews, like probably what I was most excited to do and proud of having done is I interviewed the two writers on No Way Home, right? And it was just so cool because like, I don't know, if I was a writer and given that assignment, like
that's crazy.
How
Dude,
do you think about that?
You have so much to like fulfill and like expectations.
And they did it. I think they did it. I really liked No Way Home.
No, when people say like No Way Home was just a nostalgia bait, I was like, good. Because I mean, honestly, like that's all I needed. Because there's so many rumors. They're like, you have to bring this back. It's not possible. They hid everything. I was like, that's all you need. You just need to hit the Spider-Man fans. And if you do that, you're good.
I think they did it. But my take on it is that like, if you were to somehow synthetically get rid of the nostalgia, it still functions as a not perfect, but a really well done story, right? And you know, the equivalent of it is like, people say like, oh, you know, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield coming in wouldn't have made any sense if we didn't see other movies. No, because in Into the Spider-Verse, something similar happened, and we didn't know any of those Spider-Men, right? And that still had an emotional punch. So I think a similar thing would have happened. It's about this one kid dealing with his journey and like learning from older mentors. That's all it is, and it's really well done. But yeah, it was cool talking to them because I really got to like really go into the details and say like, hey, you had this challenge. How did this go here? How did you think about this challenge and this challenge? How'd you balance this and this and this? And it was really fun to just like hear about their process. So that was cool. Interviewed writers. I interviewed one of the writers on Venom. It was fun to dig a bit into that. I interviewed the guy who plays Jimmy Woo, Randall Park, during the WandaVision hype. That was cool. I interviewed Iman Vellani, who plays Ms. Marvel, and I was really excited about that because like a Muslim superhero and that sort of thing. Yeah, it was very important to me. So that was cool. As far as creators, I mean, I've met a lot of creators I admire now. Like I met Straw Hat Goofy. I think he's like a really awesome guy. He was. What I loved is that like I saw him on the red carpet, right, and I was like, no, he's not gonna know who I am. Like I know he follows me, I follow him, but like he follows a lot of people. Like,
you're probably like, oh, he's gonna forget or something.
And so I was kind of going up to him. I was gonna shake his hand, and be like, hey, yeah, I remember. But he sees me, and he's like, hey, and he comes in and hugs me, and he's like reliable narrator. And I was like, how? It just blew my mind that he like knew who I was.
That's
right?
awesome.
And he was so cool. He was so friendly, and all that. I met Soups. I talked to him. I think Soups is a brilliant guy. I think he's very intelligent. I got advice from a lot of them. I just a lot of these people that I really look up to and really admire, and like I want to learn from. Right? And as I build whatever I build.
And I think this is like really interesting to me because there's a lot of people that are like writers, right? And they kind of don't like the social media realm, but I feel like you kind of put both those aspects and do it really well together. Do you like social media? Do you like how it is? Like, do you use it to your advantage? And
I'm trying to use my advantage. But I love it, right? Like for people that say that there's like dangers of social media and it eats up your attention, messes with dopamine levels. Sure, I think that is there, right? But maybe just like fire can hurt you, and it's also a tool that advances all of civilization, right? So like I think there is.
That was a bar.
I think there's so much potential to use social media to do a lot of really awesome things. So if you think about it, in terms of one individual creator, well, like, I think the criticism of TikTok at first was like, oh, it's just like, it's cringe. It's like they're doing dances and that sort of thing. But if you think about content, all it is someone sharing what they're passionate about, in however they want to do it, and finding an audience that is also passionate about that thing, right? And that, in a way, has always happened, right? People like write books. People like, go outside and do a show, and people always find an audience around that. This is just a medium, right? And I think what's cool about it is it's a medium that is democratizing access to an audience. I think it's incredibly powerful. I think it's a really beautiful way to tell stories at scale. I think it's an awesome way to really hone whatever your own craft is. And hey, if that's dancing, great, right? Why not, right? If it's writing, great. I think it's also like a fantastic thing you can dig into. I think social media has been, I think, in a lot of ways net positive. I think there's a lot of problems with it, right? But I think it's a brilliant thing. And I, not that I'm in any position to give advice to a filmmaker, but I think starting up on social media as a filmmaker right now is a awesome thing to do to build an audience and then get into, film proper.
100%. If there's any advice for somebody that's maybe trying to do a similar path as you, getting into social media and also creative writing about analyses and stuff like that, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I mean, so as far as the content thing, I'm sure you can, resonate with this a bit. I think it's about just testing a bunch of things and seeing what hits, right?
100%.
And then if you scroll all the way back to my TikToks, there's really weird, there is Marvel stuff. There's also deep religious stuff. There's Muslim stuff. There's college admissions advice. There's all this different stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about a lot of things. I want to try some, different parts of me out. The movie stuff is what hit, right? And I'm glad that's what hit because that's something I enjoy doing. But I think really focus on what are the things that you're passionate about in your life and try different ways of putting them out there. And I really believe that anyone can be a content creator, right? If you put in the effort, right? I talked to some friends like, oh, but I'm boring. Dude, there is several TikTok influencers with millions of followers where all they do is share Excel tips. If that can exist, right? Anything, whatever you're interested in can exist. There's a guy who cuts bread and has 2 million followers. It's a brilliant channel, right?
Yeah.
So I think it can work with anything. So I would say, test some things out, see what you're passionate about, right? And try it out and take inspiration from other creators and see where you land. As far as on the analysis bit, and we didn't go into this, but how I approach consuming media is very informed by, one English class in high school, but very much my college education where I was a religion major. But what I would do is we'd have to write essays and we'd have to look at religious scriptures and writings about scripture from 700 years ago. And what I would do is, I look at secondary sources, I look at all that, but I would spend a lot of time just looking at the primary source and sort of taking very careful notes about what does this seem to be saying to me, right? What is sort of independent of everything else, what seems to be coming out, right? And one of my professors told me once that you can look at secondary sources that will explain it for you, but you'll almost always find that if you try to go at it yourself, you will find something novel out of it, right? So I try to take that approach and just see what the story is telling me. And I think it's kind of wild to take skills I learned from ancient religious text analysis and put them on Marvel movies. It works and it's fun, But yeah.
That's awesome. Let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok at Reliable Narrator. On Instagram, I'm at The Reliable Narrator. Wasn't able to get it without the. I'm also Reliable Narrator on YouTube. And then I'm Anhar Cream on Twitter, if Twitter still exists.
And then
in a couple months.
Before we let you go, we didn't get into this, but I think now is the time. Why Reliable Narrator?
Yeah. At first I was just testing things out as far as concepts. I wasn't taking TikTok that seriously. So I kind of didn't put that much effort into the name. But I was like, hey, what's a funny thing to do? And so at first I was Unreliable Narrator, right? Because I was like, oh, that's a literary thing. People talk about unreliable narrators in fiction. I know I'm a writer, that sort of thing. So I want to put that in. I started posting content on that. Didn't really go viral at all. But then after a while I was like, no, you can trust me. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm reliable, right? And so then I changed it to Reliable Narrator because I was just I want to be a trustworthy source, but then also Reliable Narrator, you talk about how in fiction there's unreliable narrators. You don't typically talk about how there's reliable one. So it stood out and it was a bit unique. And I think it did get a bit at the sort of core of I want you to be able to come to me and hear something about a story that feels a bit authoritative and feels a bit either calming, feels like you're learning something, that sort of thing. And I feel like that name kind of gets at that idea.
That's dope. All right, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Anhar, for coming through.
Thanks for having me.
Telling
It's a lot of fun.
your knowledge. We're gonna continue this conversation in the bonus episode. So come through. We're gonna be rating every Marvel film. So I'm excited.
That's gonna be so hard.
And he's gonna be like, I know, I can tell already. He's gonna be so stressful, but it's gonna be fun. So come through. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and peace out, gang, and keep shining.